What happens when one of America's fastest-rising political firebrands goes head-to-head with a sharp-tongued, battle-tested television journalist on live national TV? You don't get a polite morning show chat, you get an on-air explosion. This wasn't just another interview. It was a full-blown televised clash that left millions stunned and shook the political media world to its core. Before we dive into this unbelievable showdown, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe for more jaw-dropping political moments, and drop your thoughts in the comments, because you're going to want to talk about this one. Now, let's get straight to the video. The Good Morning America studio buzzed with its usual early morning chaos. Stage managers darted back and forth, makeup artists scrambled for last-minute touch-ups, and the teleprompter operator was practically sweating bullets. The tension in the air was electric. Everyone knew something big was about to go down, and in the center of it all sat Karoline Leavitt, cool, composed, and radiating the confidence of someone who's no stranger to high-stakes interviews. Across from her, George Stephanopoulos shuffled through his note cards with that familiar, knowing smirk, ready to glide through what he assumed would be a simple segment about her new book. But the moment the cameras started rolling, it was clear, nothing about this was simple. And it certainly wasn't friendly. "Good morning, Karoline. Thanks for joining us," George began, flashing his trademark polished smile. "Glad to be here," Karoline replied, her steady voice carrying that unmistakable New Hampshire grit. Just like that, the stage was set for a showdown no one could have predicted. "So," George started, his tone thinly veiled with skepticism, "let's talk about your new book. You call it another conservative manifesto and say you represent forgotten Americans. But critics claim you're just repeating tired old slogans. How do you respond to that?" The words weren't even cold before Karoline's smile sharpened. "Well, George," she fired back, "maybe those critics should actually read the book before dismissing it. Every single policy in there speaks to real issues, something different, something urgent." The shift was instant. The air thickened. The tension started to simmer. George leaned in, eyes narrowed, voice smug. "But isn't this just a pattern? Another young conservative waving the America First banner, riding the same old wave of traditional values. Are you really saying anything new?" Backstage, producers froze. This wasn't going according to script. Karoline didn't blink. "Maybe the real problem," she said, her tone edged with fire, "isn't that I'm consistent, it's that Washington forgot how to represent real Americans. People who live where I grew up, where authenticity isn't a slogan, it's survival." The tone had shifted. The air in the studio thickened, heat rising like stage lights turned too high. George sensed blood in the water and went in for the strike. "So, what about your experience?" he pressed. "You've risen fast, some say too fast. Are you really ready for the responsibility that comes with your platform?" The question hit hard. Personal. Karoline's jaw tightened, and for a beat, silence wrapped the room like static. "Irresponsible," she echoed, her voice calm but glacial. "Tell me, George, have you ever fought tooth and nail just to be heard? Ever had to prove your worth just to earn a seat at the table?" Her eyes locked on his, then flicked toward the camera, piercing through the lens. Every viewer could feel the burn. George held his ground. "I'm not challenging your struggle," he said evenly. "I'm asking about your responsibility as a national figure." That only fed the flame. Karoline leaned forward, eyes blazing. "I never asked to be anyone's savior," she snapped. "I asked for the chance to represent policies that help real people. What you call talking points, I call survival plans." The tension was now so thick it hummed. Each word landed like a jab, and George was starting to falter. "Don't you think," he pushed, voice tightening, "with so many young supporters, you owe them more than slogans? Don't you owe them a responsible message?" Karoline didn't blink. "I owe them truth," she shot back. "I owe them proof that you can rise up and challenge the system without selling your soul to it. I'm not here to play nice for TV ratings. I'm here to fight for people who've been ignored for too long." Now they were both leaning in, voices raised, faces taut. George tried one last thrust. "You criticize the system while you benefit from it. Isn't that hypocritical?" And that was the spark that lit the fire. Karoline shot to her feet, her chair screeching backward across the floor. "You want to talk about profit?" she snapped, eyes blazing. "Let's talk about how your network profits off fear and outrage, how you sit there stirring division while pretending you're solving it." The cameras kept rolling. This wasn't an interview anymore. It was a firefight. George's voice rose to meet hers. That's not what this is about, and you know it. I'm talking about your role, your leadership. Karoline wasn't playing defense anymore. No, George. You're creating controversy because you need it. You brought me here to talk about a book, and you turned it into an ambush. The studio froze. No one breathed. No one blinked. Her voice sliced through the silence like thunder rolling over glass. You're not asking questions. You're pushing a script. You call this journalism? This is theater. This is manipulation. And just when it seemed the storm couldn't rage any harder, George stood up too. The tension detonated. Both were locked in, neither willing to yield. I've been in journalism longer than you've been in public life, he barked. I don't need a lecture from you. The clash was volcanic now. Karoline, red-faced and fierce, leaned across the desk. Is that what you think I am? Some lucky kid who stumbled into politics? I fought for every inch of ground I stand on. The control room was chaos, hands flying, producers shouting, but the feed kept rolling. It was too late to stop. Karoline's glare could cut steel. You ask me about responsibility, George? Then answer this. What's your career built on? What have you created that actually helps people who've been left behind? George tried to answer, but his voice cracked under the pressure. My job is to hold people accountable, he managed. Karoline didn't flinch. No, your job used to be informing the public. Now it's manufacturing outrage for clicks. George gripped his cue cards like they were a lifeline, his knuckles white, the paper trembling in his hands. Karoline, when someone has your platform, they should expect hard questions, George snapped, trying to wrestle back control. But his voice didn't land like it used to. Karoline's New Hampshire grit cut through the air like a blade. Hard questions are one thing, she shot back. But this was a setup from the start. You didn't want a discussion about policy. You wanted blood. And now that I'm pushing back, you're scrambling. In the control booth, producers hovered over their monitors, frozen between cutting the feed or letting it ride. No one blinked. The tension was electric. Karoline was on fire, and George was visibly rattled. He tried again, tone cooler, hands tightening on his cards. I came prepared to ask meaningful questions about your platform. If you can't handle scrutiny, that word was the spark. Don't you dare suggest I can't handle scrutiny. Karoline thundered, her voice shaking the air. I've taken hits from the press, from political elites, from career cynics like you, and I'm still standing. I don't crumble just because someone in a suit raises their voice. She stepped forward, looming over the desk. The difference between us, George, is that I don't pretend to be neutral while pushing an agenda. I'm honest about who I fight for. George's face was flushed, frustration, embarrassment, maybe both. You're twisting this, Karoline. I'm asking what millions of people are wondering. What message are you sending with this kind of rhetoric? Karoline's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. You want to talk about messages? Fine. Let's talk about yours. You're telling people that when a young woman dares to challenge your media-approved narratives, she'll be dragged on national television for it. The camera zoomed in as she leaned closer, her voice dropping low but dangerous. That if you don't play nice with the establishment, you'll be labeled divisive, dangerous, reckless, when all you're doing is telling the truth. George opened his mouth to reply, but Karoline didn't let him breathe. You didn't even read my book, she said, every syllable razor-edged. You skimmed headlines, glanced at talking points, and walked in here with your mind made up. The control room flashed for a commercial break, but the cameras kept rolling. Everyone knew this was the kind of moment that explodes across the internet. George tried to gather himself. If you're truly representing unity, why does your message always come wrapped in confrontation? Karoline fired back instantly. Because confrontation is the only language the establishment understands. You don't hear calm voices, you tune them out. But raise your voice, stand your ground, and suddenly you're a problem worth silencing. The audience at home could feel it. This wasn't a scripted campaign soundbite, it was raw, unscripted defiance. George looked stunned. So now you're accusing the entire press of being corrupt? He asked, his voice unsteady. Karoline didn't hesitate. I'm accusing people like you, the ones who pretend to be objective while pushing narratives that serve power, not people. That's not fair, George muttered, barely above a whispered "no," Karoline said, fire in her eyes. "It's not. But that's the reality Americans live in every day. And unlike you, I don't get to hide behind a network logo when things get hard." Then she turned toward the camera, her voice now reaching past the studio walls. "People are tired of being talked down to. Tired of being told that if they don't go along with the system, they're part of the problem. You brought me here for a cheap viral moment, and you got it.